It's 22 before the hour. It's News Talk 94.3 WRHI. Here we go on this beautiful Tuesday morning, about 57, 58. Look at this sky out here. It's just gorgeous today.
It really is beautiful blue sky.
Yeah. All right, we have a special guest on the line with us.
We're here with Traci Medford-Rosow, and she's written a book called War and Sacrifice in Corporate America. The book's called Inflection Point. Good morning, Traci. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
It's wonderful to have you here. This is a little bit of a complicated subject, but one we are actually familiar with on our end. You being an author and patent attorney, you may know a little bit more about this. Successful drugs making billions in profits. Well, this is an interesting fact. 1 in 10,000 drugs invented will ever make it to consumers. This is really about the FDA process.
Wow.
And this book that you've written is a memoir, and you're talking about big pharma. Explain some of the things that you talk about in your book, Inflection Point.
We're all ears.
Okay, so, I think I'll just hit a few high-point factoids here, which seems to be interesting. You just picked up on one, which is that 1 in 10,000 drugs that are actually invented ever make it to the market. And the reason for that is because what you said, the FDA process, it's a very long and complicated process that takes anywhere from 10 to 12 years.
Wow.
And costs $1 billion, and the drugs, fall out along the way. Fortunately, the FDA is doing the job that we want it to do, which is to make sure that the drugs are not only efficacious, meaning that they do what they claim they're going to do for us, but they're also safe.
Well, you're talking about this particular drug, Lipitor, which has been in a big patent fight. And
We know a ton of people to take that.
So what is the story behind this in particular drug?
Well, what I did was, I retired from Pfizer 6 years ago and set up my own law practice with my partner, and it was 3 years at least after I left Pfizer that I started this sort of coming into my mind. As I was representing other pharmaceutical companies in these same big kind of high-profile patent infringement battles in court, I started to realize that the law that governs these patents, which was passed in 1984 called Hatch-Waxman, no longer is really working very well for anybody. Okay. So I had the idea to write this book sort of as like a story, to tell a story.
Okay.
Did we just lose her?
What just happened there?
No.
Oh,
There we
good.
go.
Okay.
There we are. Okay.
Okay.
I'm right here.
Oh, that's good.
I was waiting for your next
Oh,
question.
that's good. Okay, so this is sort of bringing a spotlight to some ways maybe that we could try to think about fixing these problems. Would you say?
Is that possible? Can they be fixed?
Yeah, but that's exactly what I was hoping. I wrote it for two reasons. One was to try and sort of shine a light on the fact that the law, which is 32 years old, isn't really working very well anymore, and it has its impact for consumers because we don't need to be wasting money battling one another in court. We could use that money for more positive things for all of our health care.
Sure.
And then the other thing was I wove the story. I wrote the story as a fast-paced legal courtroom thriller, if you will, but woven onto that are the stories of the people behind the scenes, so that I was trying to put a face to Big Pharma. It's like, what is Big Pharma? Well, it's people at the end, and it's people like me and the people on my team. So I wove through that courtroom drama, if you will, the stories of the different people that were involved in the battle.
I think that there's also the news lately of the man who is responsible for raising the prices. Is that is it one person or one boardroom that makes drugs expensive in our country?
But, that was a very interesting story. I just heard about that myself about 6 months ago or something. That's a generic. And I thought, oh, my goodness, here we have, everybody always says, generics are so great because they're less expensive. This particular story that you're talking about, this drug is a generic, which means that, it's not protected by patents or anything like that.
Okay.
So I guess it was, law of supply and demand, and for a short period, he was the only person in the United States making it, and he charged whatever he wanted for it.
Unbelievable.
Can you talk about that? Why aren't generics as effective here? Why are they not as effective? And what do we need to know about this? I'm a generic guy, always.
I'll choose
just
those.
What you said, sure, it's a little bit cheaper, usually a lot cheaper.
Yeah, sometimes they're cheaper. Sometimes they're actually, I was shocked that some of the generic prices now are just within a few cents of the brand drug. So,
sure.
But sometimes they're perfectly equal, and sometimes they don't work quite as well. I'm sure you've heard plenty of stories just sort of anecdotally over the years about somebody who was taking a drug and then the generic came out and they'll say, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to work the same for me. It's just sort of anecdotal stuff. So I'm not an expert on generics, but I have heard that.
Do we have to become a lawyer to understand what we actually can do to make changes here? I mean, we're relying on the wonderful information that you've provided in your book called Inflection Point. But what else can we do besides just keep our eye on the news and vote accordingly? Is that all we got?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty, I'm not sure any of us can do that much. It is going to take, quite a big effort. Certainly, I would imagine in Congress, we need to look at the entire healthcare system. It's not just, this is one little part of one little part. Because if you look at the whole healthcare system, drugs are, I think, only 8% of the whole spend anyway. So now we're talking about, a slice of a slice. And then the slice that I'm looking at is just this one thing about how these disputes between generics and research-based pharmaceutical companies take place in court, and why I, from my own experience, is to believe now that this system isn't working for anybody, and we're just wasting money and time, fighting about what generics can sell and when they can sell and this and that.
This is almost a romantic notion, and quote unquote romantic, but the idea that do you feel like there's any pushback or danger to you for exposing these things?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying that because I watch movies that these things happen in, but you get the feeling that maybe some executives would want at all costs this information not getting out.
I don't feel I'm under any danger. No, I think that everybody knows. I mean, what I'm saying now about the system and the patent infringement system, the law's not working so well. I think everybody would agree with that. I think because it's not working for the generics either. I mean, 32 years ago, when it was passed, it was working pretty well for a while, for, 10 years, 15, 20-year period. But it's sort of broken down. A lot has changed in the delivery of drugs in the last 3 decades, and this law just hasn't kept up with it. So I don't think anybody's going to say, this is just, this woman is shining a light on something that nobody wants to see happen. I think everybody at the end would like to get along rather than fight, and rather spend their money in positive directions than sort of wasting it fighting in courtrooms.
You're right.
That's an interesting statement from an attorney.
That's true.
And a very nice one. It's one that we love to hear.
It's refreshing.
That sounds like a problem-solving type statement.
We certainly want to cure cancer. I mean, this is one thing. It's like, let's start with that one. Cure cancer, pharma.
You would think.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm hoping to see in my lifetime. That's the other, sort of thing that I was percolating in the back of my mind as I was sort of compelled to write. I mean, it was never on my bucket list to write a book. I mean, I've been an attorney for 35 years or whatever it is at this point, and it was sort of just like coming into the back of my mind, tell this story. But one of the reasons is because we don't have a cure for all forms of cancer. We're getting there. I mean, there's been a tremendous amount of progress. And I think at this point, cancer's pretty much affected everybody, either directly or indirectly. It's just rampant. And we have to, Big Pharma's our friend. They're the ones going to invent, finally, all the different cures that we need for this horrific disease. And, can't depend on generics. They don't do research, so they're not going to invent it. And the government isn't either. So it's going to, at the end of the day, Big Pharma's going to, and they are. Every time you pick up the newspaper, you see, better this new drug and that new drug, and they're having some fabulous, results with these new drugs. So we want them to just keep their nose to the grindstone and keep inventing these cures for us, not just for cancer, but there's still a lot of diseases out there that don't have a cure. So that's another thing. I said, rather than wasting money fighting about when generics can sell, these drugs that the pharmaceutical companies are inventing, let's take all those research, not just money, but tremendous amounts of time, and look in a positive direction. How can we put that money and time into something that's going to help human beings?
This book is called Inflection Point, War and Sacrifice in Corporate America. I think it's really quite a primer on this industry to really give you some insight.
Wow. So
thank you very much. Where can we find this book? We can on Amazon?
Yeah, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You can get it directly if you go to my website, which is the name of the book, inflectionpointmemoir.com. There's direct links to the books and several sources. I mean, different bookstores and stuff. But I guess the biggest one is Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Excellent. Well, Traci Medford-Rosow, is it Rosow?
Rosow, yes.
Great. Thank you so much for your hard work and fascinating stuff. We'll keep our eye on this whole industry.
Thank you, Traci.
Thank you, Freddie. Thank you, Chuck. Have a nice day. Thanks so much.
You
All
too.
right.
Bye-bye.
Wow. I was just reading through her
Smart
credits.
lady.
And, oh, my gosh. Listen to this. I mean, she's really got a bunch here. She enjoyed a 35-year career now at Pfizer, positions of Senior VP and Chief Intellectual Property Counsel. Wow. Global Head of Intellectual Property Litigation, General Counsel of Europe, She held a JD from Brooklyn Law School, and she holds an LLM in international law from NYU School of Law, fluent in English, Spanish, French. I mean, just, a person like that, when you hear her talk and she sounds so down to earth and it's such that I can almost understand she puts it, she's dumbing it down, I think, for me.
From her heart, almost. Like she has this, she's accepted this information and is now presenting it to us in a way we can understand.
Wow. Anyways, and I like that she just doesn't want to go in and battle and break this down. Let's find some solutions for this thing. I mean, y'all have got to exist and you've got to do this, but you can't hold us hostage over the price and what it costs to do these drugs.
This is the crack in the armor, it seems, as if we're going to start seeing these things. We're focusing on the law, hopefully making changes so that it benefits consumers.
I thought that the Affordable Health Care Act was going to take care of a lot of this for this, and I'm not taking a shot at the Affordable Health Care Act. Did it have any purpose or did it have any aim toward controlling some of these costs too? These seem to be skyrocketing. Then you have somebody that can come in that you were talking about, this guy that had control of that one drug.
Yeah.
And he seemed a little
like young and
a little snarky about it.
Yes.
I've got the drug, and if you need it,
So?
here's what it's going to cost. Okay, so there. Which I don't think we should be allowed.
Shouldn't be that kind of supply and demand.